And five, four, three, two, one. Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust to defer hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in capital gains tax on the sale of real estate properties, primary homes, businesses, cryptocurrency. Save a failed 1031 exchange is an amazing way for you to create and preserve more wealth or help your friends, family, clients, investors do the same. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, cryptocurrency, and business minds in the world where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. Hey, we're going to be talking about becoming a wise investor, and our guest oversees the marketing and business development at Real Wealth, and he's the co-founder with his wife, Kathy, and he is passionate about developing their team and their systems and is always looking for new ways to bring good people to the network. As a licensed real estate broker, experienced investor, and master certified business coach, he specializes in helping his team stay aligned and inspired to fulfill their company's purpose, mission, and values. He's also the best-selling author of the brand new book, The Wise Investor. Please welcome to the show with me, Rich Fettke. Rich, how you doing?
You're really good. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Great to have you on the show. I had the privilege to shake your hand at the Best Ever Conference a few months back, and now we get to spend some time to deep dive with you here. So for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Oh man, what led us here really was it was 20 years ago exactly. I was on a book tour. I had just signed a book deal with Simon and Schuster for a book called Extreme Success. I had a thriving coaching practice. I was a keynote speaker. Everything was going awesome. And then I was diagnosed with melanoma, and the doctor told me that I had 6 months to live because they thought that it had spread to my liver. So that was just a punch in the gut. We had a 3-year-old daughter, a 10-year-old daughter. Kathy was a stay-at-home mom. And so she's like, what am I going to do for an income if Rich dies? So she scrambled and she rallied and she's like, what am I going to do here? And she started to find mentors. And those mentors taught her about real estate investing as a way to create income, to create some income for the family. So luckily and thankfully, the doctor's diagnosis was wrong. The melanoma had not spread to my liver. So I just had to have a few surgeries to remove the melanoma. But that 3 months of not knowing and being told that I had 6 months to live, there was a lot of tears. There was a lot of despair. There was a lot of fear. But it was the impetus for Kathy to get out there and find a way to really create financial freedom for us. And that's what it did. We started to invest in real estate. We went to Dallas, Texas. We were up in the San Francisco Bay Area at the time and we bought some rental properties there and learned what it's like to be a landlord and create monthly cash flow coming in. And then we started to have friends and family ask us, how did you do it? And Kathy and I talked about it. And we said, we should just form this little group of investors and we can help each other and support each other. We thought it would maybe be a couple hundred people. And today, 17 years later, 18 years later, we have over 64,000 members at Real Wealth that we've helped get into investment properties and create financial freedom. So it's been quite a journey. It was born out of despair.
Absolutely amazing. What a story. What an origin story. What perseverance, what opportunity. And you use that now to be a blessing and help to so many others, which leads right into the next question, right, Rich? And I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life. Some people call them strengths. Some people call them superpowers. I believe they've been given to us to be a blessing to others and help other people. And so I want you to go back even before this challenging time in your life. I want you to go back to the younger days, maybe the high school or college days, right? And what are those one or two strengths or gifts that you believe you were given? And how does that help how you help and bless people today?
That's an awesome question. When I really look back at it and coming up to today, I would say it's the ability to bring a team of people together to work toward a common vision or common goal. Way back when we had horse chestnut trees in our yard back in Danvers, Massachusetts, and I used to, get a bunch of friends together and we would sell tickets for kids to come in and pick up those horse chestnuts. And then we created a spook house around Halloween time and organized this whole team. And we would charge people to go, 25 cents to go through the spook house, and then would use all that money to go out and get ice cream sundaes together or something. But, and then I owned a health club when I was 23 and we grew that from 4 employees to 23 employees. And we grew it to over 24,000 square feet. So I would say the talent or the gift is bringing people together, which I guess would call it leadership, just understanding people, understanding what makes a team bond and come together and work together. And I bring that now to Real Wealth and our whole team at Real Wealth.
Absolutely, you do. That's part of why you have 64,000 people that you've helped and are helping you with Kathy and the whole team that you guys have built together. It's really incredible. So the ability to bring a team of people together and work towards a common goal, leadership, people, and teamwork. So, which leads right into the topic at hand, which is becoming a wise investor. By the way, if you want to learn more about Rich right now and even check out his book, you can go to thewiseinvestorbook.com. That's thewiseinvestorbook.com. You can also check out realwealth.com, realwealth.com. So, Rich, let's talk about that. What's the number one secret to becoming a wise investor?
Oh man, I think what it really comes down to is how you see wealth. And, being a wise investor is about investing. It's not just about investing in money. It's investing in assets. And the mentor in the story, it's a parable. It's a modern parable. It's about creating financial freedom, but it's also about how to live your best life. So it's taking all those years of being a professional coach and coaching people on all areas of their life, and then weaving in the 20 years or 18 years at Real Wealth, helping people create financial freedom. So it comes down to, like, the mentor in the story, he describes assets a little bit differently than we all typically look at assets. We usually look at it just, something that's going to give us a return on investment and bring us more finances, more income. The mentor in the story, he describes an asset as anything that brings you income, happiness, health, or time. And so I love that. I think that's looking at it through that filter, that mindset of being a wise investor. It's looking at, and a liability would be just the opposite. A liability is something that's going to cost you income, or it's going to cost you time or happiness or your health. So I think being a truly wise investor and being wise, which is tapping into wisdom of what we know is the right thing to do, the right way to live, and all that. So it goes beyond just the finance, although it's very much a book about creating financial freedom. I think that's it for us as investors. It's how can we invest in ourselves? How can we invest in assets? How can we invest in businesses that are going to create cash flow for us and free up our time? But also, how can we invest into things that are going to benefit our health and things that are going to bring happiness, investing time into our family, into our kids, anything like that. So it's a perspective thing.
It's incredible. I love it. And by the way, the forward to this book, by the way, you guys might have heard of a guy named Robert Kiyosaki. He's a hero for many in the real estate world and the wealth world. And so he wrote the forward to Rich's book, by the way, thewiseinvestorbook.com. And so part of a quote that he says, and I want to kind of dive into this part of the secret here, is that, Robert had a quote that the reason to own a business, Rich, is to purchase real estate, right? Mm-hmm. Which maybe we take it a step further. The reason to own real estate, which is to create real wealth, which is, it's going to give you income. Hopefully, it can give you some happiness. Hopefully, not too much heartache. San Francisco, and I'm from Taxifornia. I grew up in the Bay Area, not too far from San Francisco, and Fremont, Mission San Jose, and then Sacramento as well. And you have rent control. You have these challenges. You have these different things, right? But hopefully it gives you some time back, right? It can replace your income, and it can hopefully that gives you that more time, gives you more health. So connect those dots for us here. What are the one things that people are typically missing when it comes to perhaps the health and the happiness? Because I think the income and the time perhaps are more common for people to think about, but connect that health and happiness in all of this.
Yeah, I mean, one of those investments is investing on other people, on your team. That's, to having a business or running a business is not really being an entrepreneur. It's like a lot of times people just create a job for themselves. And so it's really looking at leveraging your time and bringing on people with abilities that you don't have or that you don't enjoy, but they do, and bringing them into your team and growing exponentially that way. But in the book, what the mentor does is he sits down with the protagonist, Ryan Brooks is his name. And he's this guy, he's a real hardworking family man. He's got a couple kids and he's working a W-2 job, and he works so many hours that he has no time for his life or his kids or his wife or any of that. And so this mentor, this new friend and mentor, guides him. And one of the things he does is he sits down and he draws this life wheel. He draws a circle and he makes 10 areas of different areas of life. He said, let's take a snapshot of where you are right now in your life. I want you to rate these different areas. And it was health, finance, career, health and fitness, personal development and education, spirituality, romance, all these things. And the protagonist is like, Brian's just like, I don't, I want you to mentor me on finances. I need to make more money. And so the mentor is like, well, yeah, you can make a lot of money, but if you don't take care of this area over here called significant other and romance, you could lose half of that money, right? You don't take care of that marriage, you're going to lose half of your assets. There's a good chance. And if you don't take care of this wedge called health and fitness, you could lose it all. You could lose everything, right? So I think that's one of the big lessons. It's like stepping back and really looking at your whole life and really looking at what does your ideal life look like? And what is that wealth going to bring you? Now Kathy and I live in Malibu. We were up in Lafayette, California in the Bay Area. We moved to Malibu 12 years ago. And there's a lot of wealth in Malibu. There's a lot of money in Malibu is what I should really say. But the mentor talks to Ryan and he says, I know a lot of people are so poor, all they have is money. And that's what I see here in Malibu. There's a lot of people who have a lot of money, but they're still poor. They're poor in life, they're poor in health and all that. So I think to be a really wise investor, it's really taking a look at your life and saying, where am I in all these areas of my life on a scale of 0 to 10? Am I you might be a 5 in health and fitness. You might be a 9 in finance. You might be a 4 in spirituality. You might be a 2 in romance. So it's like that's not real wealth. Real wealth is when you're moving all of those areas of your life wheel and you have satisfaction in all these areas of life. Not always balanced. We can't be totally set and balanced, but it's always taking a look and investigating, am I living my best life? Am I being my best self? And for all this money I'm focused on and making, what kind of life is it bringing me? So that's really important to me.
That's amazing. And you're talking about Rich Fettke, I think I'm pronouncing the last name correctly, and he's been talking about becoming a wise investor in his brand new book, Get the Wise Investor Book, by going to thewiseinvestorbook.com. I love the way you make that so practical and so applicable, right? Draw a wheel, a circle, about 10 areas of your life, right? And then start ranking them, on a scale of 1 to 10 with how healthy and how good and how much are they bringing you happiness? Are they bringing you time? Are they bringing you energy? And how much are those helping you to thrive as a whole person, not just some of the areas that we tend to focus on, which could be just finances or just regular health, physical health. Is that a fair summary so far, Rich?
Absolutely. And the bottom line is like, this is what I learned from coaching people for, now 20 years. It's that when we get better, everything around us gets better. So when we focus on ourselves and how we can live a better life, the finance starts to pick up speed too. It's a snowball effect. So when you're taking better care of yourself and you're getting better sleep, you're more effective, you're more focused, you're more creative. So that contributes to creating more wealth and more income. So it's all these things support, having that healthy relationship too is huge. Your spouse or your partner, whether it be a business partner or your life partner, making sure that relationship is really working and satisfying. That's also huge for wealth creation.
Let's dive right into that, right? Because I think that's a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people that are listening to this. One might be, building the business. They may know a lot of couples like you and Kathy are awesome. You guys get to build something together, right? And I imagine it wasn't always that way. As you imagine, it came because of the challenges you had with your health. But talk about how you've been able to become a wise business partner as well as a wise, spouse. How has that changed over the years from when you guys first started this?
That's a really good point. And it's, there's a book that I read years ago called The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida. I think it's Deida, The Way of the Superior Man. I learned a lot of that, and I wove a lot of that into this story because I wanted to write a story instead of a nonfiction book because it communicates and connects facts and information emotionally, and it elicits change in us. So that I think it's about those lessons I wove into this story, The Way of the Superior Man, and it's about how to be that great partner, especially for us as men, how to one of the quotes that stands out to me is acknowledgement is oxygen to a woman's soul. And it's such an easy thing for us to forget as men, as how important it is to see our partner and to acknowledge our partner and to love and hear and be focused. So I think a huge part of it, I know the huge part of it is communication. And so going through coach training and coach certification, which was a 1.5 year long process, and then practicing it with clients and really asking questions and deep listening and listening for the words between the words. I think that's a huge part of being a good partner. Always working on ourselves or I'm going to speak to myself, always working on myself to be a better communicator, which means being curious, which means looking at how can I acknowledge her for who she is and what she's doing. Those are huge things to be a better partner and be a better spouse. And even if it's a business partner, it's the same thing. Being curious, finding out what's going on, being transparent, going below the surface and just being like, how's it going for you? How's it working? Is there anything you want to bring up with me that's not working? And how can we work together more effectively?
Amazing. Absolutely love that. I really touched that. I never heard that quote. Acknowledgement is oxygen to a woman's soul. And, growing up, my parents were divorced and my mom and my grandma took care of, my brother and I for the most part, and learned a ton from my dad, but we just spent more time with my mom. And so we had good examples of people who did that, did the things of making sure that you're acknowledging and all the things. And sometimes you don't know as a kid until you get older, like what your parents did and what your mom or dad did. And they made some things they didn't do, but taking that and just practically applying it on every single day. And so that communication and that connection. So I think that's amazing. And so now, back to the book on the Wise Investor, when you have those relationships connected, when you have your health, your romance, your finances, what other secrets or what other thoughts on the book that kind of come out that you want to share?
Well, he really, the mentor really, no surprise, he's an investor. He's a real estate investor. And so there's a lot of lessons just about the why of real estate. And the reason I wanted to weave that into the story, and it kind of shows the process over 5 years of this protagonist and where he is. He's stuck in this old way of thinking of being a W-2 employee, maxing out his 401k. He makes good 6-figure income, but there's these lessons that are communicated from the mentor around just Americans, especially, are so focused on, when you think investing, they think stocks. Right. It's just like investing in the stock market, and they don't see these alternative investments. And what Kathy and I've seen with real estate and with all the members of our network is how powerful real estate investing is for so many benefits, from the appreciation, from the amortization, paying down the loan, from, the tax benefits, right? Being a hedge against inflation. So there's a lot of lessons that the mentor conveys to Ryan in it about why real estate, and he compares real estate to investing in stocks, investing in gold, and investing in real estate. And it really kind of shows the difference of where he would be had he taken, say, $200,000 and put it into gold or into the stock market or into real estate, and where he'd be 10 years down the road. And that's where the protagonist is like, whoa. So that's one of the big, there's a lot of lessons about investing in real estate, what to look for. Some of the lessons that Kathy and I learned through going through 2008 about how to invest in real estate the smart way.
Absolutely love that, right? And we have a saying around here at Capital Gains Tax Solutions that it's no longer just about cash flow; it's about tax flow, right?
I love that.
And how do you make sense of what you're investing in? So I'm selling some multifamily properties now. I'm a commercial broker like yourself, and then we help people make sense of exiting highly appreciated assets, crypto businesses across the U.S. all the time. And one of the things we always go back to is you have to realize that some people aren't just buying these multifamily units. I have 48 units listed in Sacramento right now. They're not just buying just on the cash flow; they're buying on the tax flow, because there's a thing called bonus depreciation, accelerated depreciation, and you can offset a lot of your income. And especially if you're a real estate professional, these are the I guess the secrets, if you will, that are available to everybody. But almost no other asset type provides this type of stability, cash flow, depreciation, appreciation, right? And the lower risk adjusted rate of returns. And if you look at that and understand that and know how syndications work or partnerships work, then it can unlock this investment opportunity. So I absolutely resonate with all of those things, but it doesn't mean you don't have other advisors to help you with those other things. But most of the time, people are looking at the primary way of investing, which is the stock market, which their parents taught them, or the IRAs or the 401ks. Yeah, and they're looking at the other ways as alternatives. To me, it's real estate is the primary, and the alternatives should be those other ones, right? Right. And I just try to flip that and then say, because taxes are going higher, which leads into the next question, Rich. So I'm curious, being in the business you've been in for so long, especially in California, low inventory, very high prices. What would you say is the biggest frustration when it comes to the 1031 exchange for yourself, family, investors? What would you say that comes to mind there, or any stories come to mind?
Oh yeah. Well, I got two stories or two examples, if that's okay. I just, the first one's a quick one. Is a 1031 exchange is what got Kathy and me into real estate in the beginning back in 1997. We just got married. Kathy's dad was invested in a small apartment complex. His partner sold without telling him, and he got a letter from them, which they, snail mail. He got this, and he had a lot less time to identify and to acquire and close on a property with his 1031 exchange. So he was freaking out a little bit. He was going to have a huge tax bill. He called his 5 kids and said, "Hey, look, I need to find a property. I need to identify a property really fast here." And so Kathy just was like, went after it, and she searched all over, and she found this 4,100 square foot home in Lafayette, California. It was newly built, beautiful place. And we were able to, he did his 1031 into that. And basically we became his tenants. So he did a like-kind property, acquired that. And then we converted that because the mortgage was way too huge for us at that time. We converted that home we house hacked back then it was called house hacking, right? And we took the bottom level and we turned 2 units. We turned them into 2 units. We put a kitchen in and bathrooms. And then the master bedroom had its external staircase outside. So we blocked that off to the rest of the house. So we basically became landlords then, early in our marriage. And that property, that was in 1997. So as 1997, things started to appreciate, especially in California real estate. After that, that house went up about $100,000 a year. After that, we were able to do a cash out refi. Kathy's dad passed, which was sad, but at the same time, with that 1031, we didn't have the tax on it. So that's the happy story of the 1031 in the sense of how it helped us. What I see the most frustrating thing right now with 1031 is with the investors at Real Wealth, and we help them get into. They come to us and then like, we have a 1031. We just sold a high value property in California. We want to diversify. We want to move into the Southeast. We want to get multiple properties or an apartment or whatever. The biggest challenge they're having is finding the inventory and identifying a property. And when they do, this is the heartache, is a lot of times they're investing in new builds. And so they're not even built. And then all of a sudden, this happened over this past year with the supply chain issues. These new builds were supposed to be done in 6 to 8 months. All of a sudden it's taking 12 to 18 months. And all of a sudden it's going past for the close of, when they identified and all that. And that's created a lot of challenges. So supply chain issues and inventory seems to be the biggest challenge right now for 1031 investors.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing both sides of that, right? Because 1031 exchanges are an amazing way, especially over the last 30 years, to create some real wealth in real estate and defer those taxes and build. But it wasn't great for 2008 when people had overpaid in 06 and 05 and 07, and then had too much debt, not enough liquidity. And all of a sudden, some clients, I had friends and friends lose half or everything within a 3-year period. It was terrible, because they had built wealth for 10, 15 years. One guy had $50 million. And so part of why we started our company was to give people an alternative or even a backup plan for this scenario you're talking about, where they're running out of time, but they don't have a property lined up, or they can't close it in time. And so without using a Delaware statutory trust or a TIC or having to go in with a bunch of partners, you can put it into this trust. It's called a Deferred Sales Trust, and it saves a failed 1031 exchange. And then you can have the time to buy a deal the next day, or actually go build brand new construction with the funds, all tax deferred. It can also go into alternatives. I call these alternatives stocks, bonds, mutual funds. It can go into insurance. It can go into cryptocurrency. It can go into business startups. So I'm curious, Rich, have you heard of this before? And if so, have you ever seen it done? I'm always curious on people who've been in the business so long, what their thoughts on something like that is.
I haven't seen it done. I have heard of it recently because it's also a DST, right? And whenever I hear DST, I think Delaware Statutory Trust. But Deferred Sales Trust, is that it?
Yes, correct. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So, honestly, I think I heard about that maybe a month ago and maybe 2 months ago. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, I'm like, oh yeah, someone's saying it, and DST. And I was, in my head, Delaware. And then I was like, so wait a minute, you're talking about something different. And then I just learned of it recently. Sounds amazing.
Yeah, we just did a deal out of San Diego, a $12.75 million sale, and they actually buy the land and they build a car wash, and they all in for about $4 million. It's 4 partners, and they sold it for about $13 million. And they don't do 1031 exchanges because they're not buying $13 million car washes. They're buying land for $500,000 or so. They're building for about $3.5 million, and they rinse, wash, repeat. And so they've been doing this and paying all this tax. Now they find us and they defer millions of tax. Each partner can have their own separate trust, and they can still use the funds to go do what they would have done. And so in California alone, you're looking at 37 minimum for investment property. Obamacare 3.8, federal 20, state 13.3, plus depreciation recapture, so it's usually about 40%. And so this is the part where I say it's just not about cash flow, Rich. It's about tax flow, because if you're not before they come to you with the money, right, or you're on the exit of the money, if you're not accounting for that, it can be lower in other states, 25 to 50% with depreciation recapture. That's a huge return, right? That's a lack of return. It's almost like if you couldn't account for depreciation on these investments. And so most people, they're just focused on what's my return on my investment and then what's my tax flow within the investment. But what about the outsides, on both sides? And so this is the part where I'm like, it's why we're here, and we're coming out the book with, by the way, I'm going to plug this. We got a book coming out with Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. He'll be in the book, which is pretty cool. It's called Building a Tax Deferred Exit Strategy. Nice. And for anyone who wants to learn about this, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That being said, Rich, we're running out of time. Are you ready for the lightning round?
I think so. Let's do it.
All right. Knowing what you know now, Rich, if you go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget you'd make sure to tell yourself to do?
This is lightning. I have to answer quick. Listen. Listen. Yeah. You can't listen, can't be curious enough. I'm thinking about getting a question mark tattooed on my wrist to remind me to listen more. I think I'm a good listener, but it can always be better.
It's so good. It's so good. I love that. Number 2, what's the number 1 book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
I'm going to go with The Go-Giver is the recent one that's really kind of hit home for me, and given it to my daughters. And
it's a good book. I just reread it again just a month ago, but it's such a great book.
Yeah,
and
I love that inspiration for doing a parable. Yeah.
It's so smart, right? And exactly the same reason I kind of reread it, because it's a parable, it's a story, right? It captures something more than just facts. It captures the emotion, which is so good. Number 3 question, what are you most curious about right now? And kind of also with that, economy, what's going on, right? A lot of change happening, interest rates, creeping up, right? So maybe just kind of give that curiosity as it pertains to multifamily market. Are you guys pulling back? Are you being cautious? Are you doubling down on some areas? Kind of give us that feel for your overall investment strategy right now, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about being married to Kathy Fettke is that this is what she's all about. She's all about market predictions, and she's been doing it for years. She makes her predictions at the beginning of the year, and she's about 95% correct on those. So it's cool to be, that's why she's on the Bigger Pockets, as a co-host on that podcast for making predictions and all that. So I have that benefit. So I don't have to know a lot of it. I can follow her lead. But honestly, we're just doing the same thing we've always done for the last 20 years is, buying in emerging markets in simple. We just stick to our lane. We do 1 to 4 units. We understand it. We know it well. We have a lot of friends in self-storage and multifamily, and they know that and they do it well. But we're just sticking to what works for us, buying properties that have at least a little bit of cash flow, so we don't run into a 2008 mess that we can control, but we just hold them for the long term. We're boring. We're boring investors.
I love it. No, and you get the residential financing, it's you can't beat, right? 30-year fixed, which is still, come on, we've been spoiled. Even if it's 4.5, Rich, we've been spoiled, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
any thoughts on interest rates real fast, or any strategy there?
Yeah, Kathy thinks that they're going to hold. I mean, the Fed is definitely going to, as they said, they're going to be jacking them up and everything. But as far as mortgage rates, she's saying that they're going to hold and maybe even decrease a little bit, but maybe go up just a little bit, but basically hold. And we're not going to see double-digit mortgage rates.
Yeah, because it seems like if that happened, I just don't know where any of the cash flow goes. And so that's the part where my mind goes, I'm like, because we were at 3.5 just 2 months ago on some multifamily properties. Now they're at 4.5. And so, okay, so that's good to know. That's actually a little bit. You gave me a little bit of a little more peace of mind on that because I was curious. Yeah, so that's good. Awesome. Second to last question: what's the number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Number one leadership is that the best leaders are humble. Yeah. Best leaders are humble. It's like you focus on your team, you focus on it, you acknowledge them. A book I read called Multipliers, fantastic book. It's a big, thick one, but it really changed my perspective on leadership about not being a detractor who micromanages people and tells them what to do and doesn't trust them, but being a multiplier is how you make everyone better. You turn people into leaders. And I think when you're a great leader, it turns other people into leaders.
Love it. Last question, and then we'll remind everybody about the book and where they can find you again. After all your success, going through the challenge you went through with your health, coming out on the other side stronger like a phoenix, like to help 64,000 people along with your team and Kathy, how do you stay centered in your values? What's kind of the habits that you practice, or what the one habit maybe that you try to practice, and to stay centered in your values and stay encouraged to charge forward to reach even for higher heights?
Yeah, like I came back to earlier, it's like when we get better, everything around us gets better. I totally believe that. So it does come down to my friend says that I have rituals, my name being Rich, Richuals, because I'm obsessed with that. And I've been obsessed with it for many, many years. So starting every day with meditation and then going into yoga and stretching. And then I do burpees and crunches and push-ups, just consistent. So it's the little tiny things that make the biggest difference.
Absolutely love that. Thanks, Rich. I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts that you've been given as far as being a leader, bringing teams together, making a difference in people's lives, being a great, husband and imagine father and all the things that you're doing. And I've been watching you guys for a while. It's actually really an honor to have you on the show and a chance to meet you in person. So thank you for everything you're doing. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you or get the book, would you remind them one last time what's the best place for them to find you in the book?
Sure. Books everywhere, all major booksellers. It's on Amazon, obviously. But if you want to learn more about the book, thewiseinvestorbook.com.
Perfect. Thanks, Rich, for being on the show. Also want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is an amazing way for you to exit, defer millions or hundreds of thousands in tax so you can create and preserve more wealth. Remember, everybody, it's not just about cash flow, it's about tax flow. And you want to make sure that whatever your plan is to grow your wealth includes the taxes, because guess what? The government has about $30 trillion they're trying to figure out a way to pay for, and they have a plan, and their plan is hopefully for you to not use the strategies and the things that are out there so that you pay it. Actually, it's really not. It's actually a good thing for them when we defer the tax. It creates more wealth for everybody, but that's kind of another story. That being said, if you want help saving a failed 1031 exchange, having an alternative, exiting your crypto, business, real estate, primary homes, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Check out our free mastermind. It's every Friday at 10 a.m. PST. And then do also look for the new book coming out, Building a Tax Deferral Exit Strategy, hitting Amazon and all those places in the next 30 days or so. Thank you, everybody.